Today is a good day. Today's a really good day, honestly. Not only are we 1 week away from the college basketball season starting, which is crazy, even though it feels like we've kind of already gone on tipped off and stuff because like the country is overreacting to scrimmages, which I will do today also. But the college basketball season really starts 1 week from today. But today's a good day because anytime you need Tucker Kraft on Sunday Night Football to win you a fantasy matchup, he's going to do it. That man is my father on National Tight Ends Day. So big shout out to Tucker Kraft, of course. But again, 1 week from the college basketball season starting. I'm very excited. SEC conference preview today. We'll run through the power rankings in the entire conference, talk about every single team. We'll do awards. We will do all conference teams, and then we'll also get into news and notes for before that. We'll talk about Missouri student section, Dayton, some scrimmage notes in the Freshmen, and the Homecourt Advantage of the week. And then we'll get into the good stuff with the SEC conference preview. So without further ado, let's do it. All right, news and notes around the country. It's fitting that this is the SEC conference preview. I want to start with Missouri. I saw a tweet about how Missouri athletics at least, has changed the student section inside their basketball arena. So they used to have like a crazy student section that goes all the way up to the floor, like probably was like 4 feet off of the basket and baseline, like most, not like most student sections, but like a normal student section that they've had in the past. And now they've basically backed it up. So I'll try to flash a picture on the screen for you right here. If you're watching, you can see my phone on the camera. They basically have like this big wall that's like 7 feet off the ground and it's like 15 feet behind the baseline for the student section. I think it's because of the court rush issue, because the SEC is very anti-court rush, which this podcast is a pro court rush podcast. We have to be. I'm not going to sit here and say I don't want people to rush the court. They basically have ruined the student section. Like, I know Missouri students and fans are in uproar a little bit, but like this is awful. This is terrible. Like, it's not only like they put a little wall up or like they completely backed them up. They have completely changed the student section. It looks like Virginia Tech student section now. If you know what that one looks like with the wall and really far behind the basket, like it reminds me of that one. Yes, the students will have a harder time rushing the court. But at the same time, like they're going to want to rush the court more in the right situation because you're doing this to them, in my opinion, at least. And that's what I anticipate with the Missouri kids. But this really changes the outlook of like having a home court advantage, right? Like the student section is behind the basket that the away team shoots at in the second half. So not only are you not going to be as close to the court, you're up off the ground also. Like you don't have as much of an impact as fans and students. So you're losing a little bit of that home court advantage for sure for Missouri home games, which is a team that very much relies on home games and has in the past few years. Don't like it. I know the fans are in uproar. I need to bring awareness to this because no one's really talking about it. I'm not okay with that. I hope that Missouri athletics gets so much backlash that they change it, but at this point, it doesn't seem like they will because it looks permanent to me. But I'm not a big fan of that at all in Missouri, in Columbia, Missouri. So don't like that. Some other negative news coming out of Dayton basketball. The A-10 with Adam Njie, who one of the shiftiest guards you're going to find in college basketball. Last night, we got a tweet out that said the University of Dayton has been notified by the NCAA of potential eligibility concerns related to Adam Njie Jr. connected to matters that occurred prior to his enrollment at the university. In light of the concerns, he's basically not going to be playing going forward. Now, that being said, I was like, what is going on? Why? Obviously, you're going to get more news at some point. Then a couple hours later, you get something that says Dayton is withholding transfer Adam Njie upon information received from the NCAA. Sources tell Sports Illustrated that this is related to the widening probe of gambling and performance manipulation in the sport. That's not ideal. That's not what you like to hear. Like if it's something where it's an eligibility of a transfer thing or who knows what it could be. Like you're like, all right, whatever, hopefully they figure it out. This is not good. That's a big yikes. That's a big yikes for Adam Njie. Don't love that if he's involved and he probably doesn't deserve to play at that point. Also, I want to know exactly what it's about because if it's manipulating within college basketball and like betting on legit college basketball games, sure, that's a problem. But the NCAA also just approved gambling for college athletes to bet on pro sports, which also probably shouldn't be legal. But now that that's legal, it better not be something stupid like that where because it was in the past, of, oh, he was gambling when it wasn't legal, allowed to do that as a college athlete, then it's not. Then now that's why he's getting hit with that now. Don't love that if that's the truth, but nonetheless, not good for Dayton. It doesn't really change how I look at Dayton in the A10. I think they're still the best team in the conference. It hurts their ceiling a little bit. They lose one of their really good ball handlers. Luckily, they have Javon Bennett and other guards, but I don't love that at all. Still, nonetheless, we will have to wait and see, kind of TBD with that one, to see how that kind of plays out. And then scrimmages. I'm not going to go over all the scrimmages again because, one, there were a million exhibitions and scrimmages. Some of them still trying to keep kind of secret, but most of them have been televised. Kentucky, Purdue, Louisville, Kansas, etc. Again, massive grain of salt with the scrimmages because teams are testing their rotations. Guys that aren't fully healthy, they're not forcing guys that are maybe okay to play like they would during the season, obviously. So if things aren't fully, like, don't take away Kentucky beats Purdue. Purdue's still the number one team in the country to going into the year, or number two, whatever. That doesn't change anything, in my opinion. That being said, the freshmen in college basketball this year are next level. Like, I have not seen this upper echelon, this high-end quality of freshmen in so long. The top three guys, AJ Debance, Darren Peterson, and Cam Boozer, are as good of a top three freshmen that you are ever going to see in the sport of college basketball. Literally ever. I don't remember ever having a gut take of like, wow, these three guys would all be number one picks in the NBA draft in 90% of years. Victor Wembanyama year, Cooper Flag year, whatever, like, sure, probably not going there. But if you go into other drafts, most drafts, I would say these three going into the year, especially, are all number one caliber players. Cam Boozer was amazing versus UCF. He had like 33 and 14 and a few assists. He was unbelievable versus Tennessee. He had a 20 and 20 game with a bunch of assists, no turnovers at all. He looked ridiculously good. Like, he is so polished and so all around and so ready to be a pro, and he's not going to turn 19 until after the NBA draft next year. Darren Peterson had 24 points in the first half versus Louisville, which is crazy. He looks so smooth. I've talked a lot about him being like this Cade Cunningham type player that was at Oklahoma State in 2021, but doing that for Kansas on a better team and maybe even better, and probably better of a scorer than Cade was, but maybe not as much of a playmaker, but still similar archetype. And then AJ Debance. AJ Debance had a 30-piece versus Utah. He looked great in their last scrimmage also. He's like one of the best wing scorers. He's one of the best wing scoring prospects that you're going to find ever, really. And like, everybody knows about AJ, but those three at the top are ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous trio of elite freshmen. And then you get into the other guys that are still awesome. The Arkansas freshmen were fantastic in their one scrimmage. They dominated Cincinnati in that game, but Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas looked great. Darius Acuff, I have talked about him being Arkansas's best player, and I'll talk about him more today with Arkansas, but I think he could be an All-American player and All-SEC first-team player. I think he's that good. He looked amazing. Coach Cal's teams are best when they revolve around one elite freshman guard or a couple of elite freshmen and freshman guards. That is going to be Darius Acuff this year. He is absolutely awesome. Jasper Johnson at Kentucky looked great against Purdue. He might be the next best Kentucky, or not best, but he might be the next great Kentucky guard. And he's local. He's a Lexington kid, which I love. Sean Abayev looked great for Cincinnati in his first scrimmage. Caleb Wilson looked amazing for North Carolina in their game versus BYU. We have Michael Brown, Nate Ament I haven't talked about either. The Arizona trio of freshmen. The Houston trio of freshmen. Like, the 2026 NBA draft class is going to be fantastic and loaded because of these freshmen. And the top end is something that I really haven't seen in a while. Like I mentioned Cade before with Darren Peterson. The 2021 draft class is so strong. I think this is going to be very similar to that year, but we know that going into it, which is not what we really knew going into the 2021 class with how good some of those guys were going to be in the back end, like Franz and guys that weren't seen as top picks throughout the entire year. The other piece I want to get into about scrimmages is over in the West Coast, the Oregon Ducks. I have talked about Wei Lin. I've tried to tell the people about Wei Lin, and it hasn't gotten fully across yet, but it will. It will, and I think it's starting to now. That man is amazing. The 22-year-old Chinese CBA elite point guard that averaged 21 a game last year in the CBA coming over to Oregon is amazing for them. They don't have a lot of depth, first of all, but he looked ridiculous in their scrimmage. Who they play? Was that one against Utah, I think? I forget who it was, but he looked absolutely ridiculous in their scrimmage against Utah. If you go watch his highlight clip, the first part of the clip you get is a drive to the lane behind the head and back, no look dime to EJ Demir for an easy flush. And he's like literally not looking at all. He draws 2 or 3 defenders in and he just dimes it across. His footwork is incredible. He's very, very smart. I think that's what you kind of get with a lot of these older, experienced pro guards, especially. You're going to get guys that are very, how do I say it? I don't know. They're just intelligent with how they kind of maneuver themselves, where Waylon's not this crazy athlete, but if you watch his footwork, he's super smart. He knows how to get players to bite. Very good on step throughs and floaters and things that experienced and pro guards are going to be good at versus college players. Now, Oregon has Jackson Shellstad still hurt. We haven't heard much about his hand injury. We heard, I want to say it was late September. They said 4 to 6 weeks he'll be out with a broken hand. And I kind of lined up with about right now is the early part of when he could return in the beginning of the season next week. If he returns, Waylon's still going to play a lot because he's got to ease into it a little bit, and they also don't have a lot of depth. But if Jackson Shellstad's not playing right away, Waylon's really, really going to have an opportunity to probably start and be their one guard going forward until Jackson Shellstad is healthy. And I think Waylon and Jackson Shellstad will be an awesome duo to watch, and I think Waylon's going to end up being a fan favorite in the Big Ten this year and maybe even in the country if he can do it and Oregon can do it at a really high level. So love Waylon. Won't get into much other scrimmage stuff because, like I said, grain of salt on team results. Kentucky defense, I do want to say, I'm just going to say Kentucky defense because I'm going to talk about Kentucky in a little while. Kentucky defense, someone to look out for. But again, scrimmages are great. We want the real games because I have seen some people talk about how they don't like scrimmages anymore because everyone's overreacting and there's like too much going on almost and it's like too much happening. I kind of get that, but at the same time, like, I don't know. Let's just be happy that college basketball is back, okay? So nonetheless, let's get on. Let's news and notes. Let's get on with the Homecourt Advantage of the week presented by Homefield. Homecourt Advantage of the week presented by our lovely sponsors of Homefield. We are doing a home court advantage. It's usually a home field advantage because it's been football season so much. A lot of teams and fan bases around the country with these scrimmages and exhibition games have been filling arenas for great games, but none like Michigan State and Kentucky. Couldn't really decide between both of them, so I'm going with both of them. Michigan State and Kentucky, the Breslin Center and Rupp Arena for their scrimmages against Michigan State playing against Bowling Green, I think it was, and Kentucky had a game against number 1 Purdue, obviously, which damn well should be a filled arena, but shout out to those two fan bases for filling the arena. Now, that being said, Kentucky, Rupp Arena would probably be filled for any kind of event that is a Kentucky basketball event. It could be, I don't even know what it could be. It could be a autograph signing and you have to buy a ticket and sit in your seat. They're going to fill the arena, whatever it is. Breslin Center looked awesome. I think it was low-key like a whiteout. There were a ton of students there. The Breslin Center felt like it was a legit game, and the crowd pops when Cohen Carr was throwing down a few dunks. Like, it felt like it was a Big Ten game for the crowd, at least, and I love that out of the Breslin Center. Rupp Arena, again, not surprised, especially with a game versus Purdue and that caliber, but absolutely awesome on Friday night from Rupp Arena fans as well. We love college basketball being back. We love the fan bases. We love filling the arenas. So shout out to Michigan State. Shout out to Kentucky fans. That is the home court advantage of the week. All right, SEC conference preview. I'm excited. Let's get this one going. We got SEC today, Big East on Thursday, and then the season starts next week. And so it'll be all in-season content after that. But the SEC coming off a historical season of 14 teams in the NCAA tournament. Never, ever seen before, and you might never see it again, let's be honest, until we get like mega conferences. But the SEC coming off a historical year, not only of 14 teams in the tournament, but they had, if I'm not mistaken, they had 2 1 seeds, right? Let's go back and see. They had 2 1 seeds, 2 2 seeds, a 3 seed, a 4 seed, and 2 6 seeds. That, like, it's not only they had 14 teams in, they had a ridiculous high-end, top-heavy quality in the conference that I don't think you're going to see this year, where Auburn and Florida were obviously national title contenders. Tennessee, Kentucky, Alabama were probably seen as national title contenders by a lot also. Like, you're just not going to see that this year in the SEC, but I think, even though I think this might be a more towards a floor year in the SEC, it's still going to be a really strong season for the conference because there's obvious teams that are going to be, we'll just get into it. Like, you have the reigning national champions, Florida, who for me is going to be number one in the entire conference, Florida. I understand the idea of like, they hit a little bit of a slump. They win a national championship. They could hit a little bit of a slump. They lose all their guard play. It could be a little different. They win the national championship last year. They returned their entire front court. The entire front court. Micah Hanlock did off the bench, Ruben Chinyelu, Alex Condon, Thomas Houck. Everybody that played big minutes in their front court is coming back, and they're probably going to start three of those guys. Todd Golden said he intends to start Thomas Houck at the three, at least to start the season. Yes, they lose all their guard play. They lose Walter Clayton, who is a demon. They lose Will Richard. They lose Elijah Martin. They lose Denzel Aberdeen. It's not great. One, because guard play ends up winning you games and titles in March. We know that. Walter Clayton last year was probably the best closer that March has ever seen in the sport. Like, the guy was unbelievable. He was so stone cold. Even when he wasn't shooting the ball well in the national title game, he made a defensive stop versus Houston to win the national championship. Like, that was him on that last play, if I remember correctly. So, losing the guards isn't good. I do want to, before I tell you the additions, obviously, I want to show you, like, if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify, you can see a scale in my hands. Imagine this is like a scale. This is like a scale, though. If this is the guard play last year, how much they relied on guard play, and this is how much they relied on their bigs in their system, great. You lose all the guard play. You don't have to fill in that high end quality of guards because you keep every single front court player. So keeping them, relying on them a little bit more because they're experienced and they're going to get better. Thomas Houck is going to get better. Alex Condon's going to get even better. So you raise that quality up. You don't need to fill in the guard play at that top high-end quality that you had last year. It's impossible. It'd be a ridiculous expectation. Now, that being said, you still need good guard play, obviously, because, again, guards win you basketball games in March, and the way the Florida system works, they play off their bigs, they play off of really good playmakers in the front court, and they let the offensive dynamic guards flow and function and for a lot of free space and freedom. And those are the type of guards that Todd Golden brought into this team. Very intentional adds that fit the system. Boogie Flam within the SEC was great at Arkansas last year. Wasn't fully healthy. He's great. There's rave reviews I'm getting from people inside the Florida program. He is playing like an All-American already for them. That's kind of their word. To be fair, I understand everyone thinks they have an All-American on their team, whatever, but Boogie Flam looks great. I have no doubt that he's going to be an all-conference player. Xavier Lee, my boy from Princeton, unbiasedly is going to be good in the SEC, especially in the Florida system. I talked about the offensive system that they run. Xavier Lee needs that space. He needs that freedom. He's not going to be getting doubled like he was in the Ivy League. Sure, he might have a little bit of a transition against bigger, stronger, athletic defenders, but Boogie Flan's probably going to get the primary defender on him. Xavier Lee could get the secondary, and against some teams in the SEC, he's going to fry. So I think him having the open space, him having the offensive freedom to decision make and kind of make plays off of ball screens and DHOs, I think is going to be great for Xavier Lee. They also got CJ Ingram, a freshman, coming in. Herb Klavchar is going to play off the bench. AJ Brown coming in from Ohio, and his brother is actually on the team. I think that's why he's obviously at Florida, but AJ Brown at Ohio, awesome scorer, like him also coming off the bench. Like, no, Boogie Flan, Xavier Lee, CJ Ingram, Herb Klavchar, AJ Brown is not going to be as good as Walter Clayton, Will Richard, Elijah Martin, Denzel Aberdeen. It doesn't have to be at the same time. It's a little different. I still think this team could easily win a national title. I just think that, no, they won't be the same quality as last year because last year was a historical year in the entire sport in college basketball, so they don't need to be like that. Florida can win the national title again this year. Don't doubt anything just because they won last year and they lost all their guards. Their guards are going to be very good again. The system works. The front court is great. Florida is going to be amazing no matter what. Now, I'm wearing a Kentucky shirt. Kentucky was a pretty close second to me. Like, I did consider it for a little while, and I tried to play the hypothetical. I mean, yeah. I tried to play the hypothetical game in my head a little bit with Kentucky. And can I pick them over Florida in the preseason? I'll explain why I didn't. The team is loaded. They say they spent $22 million in the roster. I see it. I get it. Because I look at the team. I mean, there's 11 guys that are like strong SEC rotational players, are obviously better for a lot of them. And that's crazy. Like, this team is absolutely loaded. So Otego is an All-American this year, without a doubt. In that offense, he scored 16 a game last year. He could score 20 points a game this year because they have playmakers that he won't have to take that duty. He's going to be a scorer, and that's all he's going to be for the most part. Otego could score 20 points a game, probably the SEC Player of the Year. I know he won SEC Preseason Player of the Year. He is absolutely awesome. They also return a couple of guys off the bench. Brandon Garrison, who like flirting with starting, and maybe in Jaden Quaintance without Jaden Quaintance being fully healthy, he might start. Brandon Garrison, Colin Chandler, both returning also. Then the additions, Jalen Lowe from Pitt, Denzel Aberdeen from Florida, Mo Diabate from Bama, Jaden Quaintance from Arizona State, Jasper Johnson, love him as a freshman, Malachi Moreno, another good freshman, Cam Williams coming from Tulane, who's awesome. Like, there's so many guys on this team who can play at such a high level. Now, let me go back and pull up these stats that I pulled up for this team. Last year, Kentucky had the 10th best offense in the country. With that team that I just mentioned, I went through, they could easily be the number one offense in the country. Between them, Purdue, and BYU, I think those are, preseason-wise, to me, should be the three best offenses in the entire country. They were also the 53rd best defense last year. And when you adjust for opponent quality in their SEC schedule and out of conference schedule, and it's 53rd, that means it's really like a outside the top 100, realistically, if you get what I'm saying here. They were the worst team in the country at forcing non-steal turnovers, and they didn't force a lot of steals either. They were 346th in opponent two-point percentage. They allowed teams to score 57% of two-point attempts, and a lot of it at the rim and in the paint. That's awful. That is absolutely terrible, especially in the SEC when you play against big athletic teams. So basically, how much did they improve their defense, and did they do it enough to win a national championship? Because they're so good offensively, and Mark Pope is such a good offensive coach. If their defense can be good, not amazing, it has to be really good, they can win a national championship, but they need that defense to win. So on paper, Jaden Quaintance is one of the best shot blockers in college basketball, if not the best shot blocker in college basketball. He's not fully healthy yet. They say I've seen clips of him dunking the ball and doing full contact clips. Like, he looks good. When he's going to play, I don't know. Is he going to play the whole year? I don't know. Jaden Quaintance healthy is a huge piece of this. If he's going to be healthy, he starts. He's that good. He has to start. They need him for the defense. Mo Diabate was one of Alabama's only defenders last year and one of their best defenders, obviously. So him coming in is awesome. He's going to start at the 4. Cam Williams has been talking about how he can be a primary one-on-one defender, and he's been working on that. I see the vision. I saw it last year at Tulane. He had an amazing year, and he's a really good offensive player also. I buy it with him. Denzel Aberdeen is a good wing defender at Florida also. On paper, Mark Pope filled exactly what they needed defensively to be able to win a national championship. Now, that being said, Mark Pope has never had a good defense. At Kentucky, at BYU, at Utah Valley before that. I understand that some of it is personnel-based, but it's the stylistic way that Mark Pope likes to play his teams. They haven't had good defenses under him. His teams just don't play good defense. So that worries me a little bit that, like, I think... yes, Kentucky is 1,000% a national title contender. The team is awesome. That worries me at the high-end ceiling of, like, that could be their downfall again at some point, where whether that is the Final Four, Elite Eight, whatever. Eventually, I fear that the system, stylistically, of them playing so fast-paced with so much shooting that they will and not playing so tenaciously on defense, that will kind of be their downfall. That being said, their downfall will be much better than it was last year, in my opinion at least. Can Kentucky win the national championship? Again, I'll say it again. Yes, they can. They absolutely can. Defensively, things just need to be perfect and need to go right. Then we go to number 3 and beyond in the conference. And 3 and 4, I was between Arkansas and Tennessee. I think that they're definitely both Final Four quality teams. I went Arkansas at number 3 because I think Arkansas has dark horse national title potential on their team. The thing with Arkansas is, like, the variability with Arkansas this year is going to be so high. So high. Like, last year, they were a 10 seed in the tournament. I could see them being a 7, 8, 9 seed, maybe 10 seed in the tournament also, if things kind of go similarly like they did last year to them. That being said, I keep saying that being said, but that being said, they could also be a classic John Calipari freshman-led team that absolutely fries and they end up playing their really tough schedule well early on, and they end up being like a 3 seed or a 2 seed. Like, I could see Arkansas being that good. I don't know if they could be like a top 3 or 4 team in the country good, but I'm not putting that completely out of question. They returned over 50% of their roster from last year. Trevor Brazile, DJ Wagner, Billy Richmond, Carter Knox, who people are really in on for a big breakout season, which I am in on cautiously. I think he'll definitely break out in some capacity. I like him. Malik Ewan and Nick Pringle, the front court transfers coming in. I like them a lot. I think they give really good physicality, experience, especially some of it from the SEC with Nick Pringle, obviously. The fans love Malik Ewan. I think those two guys are super important. You need the front court presence. You need the physicality and defending. Darius Acuff and Malik Thomas, the 2 freshmen, are the ceiling of this team, without a doubt. They looked great in their first scrimmage versus Cincinnati. Malik Thomas is very good. Darius Acuff is going to be the best player on this team. I'll say it again. Darius Acuff might be an All-American. He could win SEC Player of the Year. Like, I think he has that potential in him. I think it's tough in the SEC because, like, Otega Away, Jacoby Gillespie, etc. Like, there are really good players in the league. Todd Pettiford, Josh Hubbard, etc. Whatever. Darius Acuff is an all-SEC caliber player. He's an all-American caliber player this year. He's going to be Arkansas's best player. People who think that, it might be DJ Wagner, I'm fully on the Darius Acuff train. The best John Calipari teams in the past are the freshman guard run teams. So look at like the mid to late 2010s teams, right? Like the De'Aaron Fox, Malik Monk team, even the Tyler Hero teams and the Tyrese Maxey, Emmanuel Quickly teams. Like, the young elite guards running John Calipari's teams are when his teams are best. I think this team could go back to that. He hasn't had that in a few years. They could go back to being that good. I think that if Darius Acuff is that dude like I think he is, then Arkansas is going to be a top 10 team in the country this year, and they could be a dark horse national title contender. And I'm cautiously in on them. Like I said, the variability is high because things could go like they did last year. But I think the SEC is a little weaker, and I think they have gotten better. So I think that I would cautiously be very optimistic with Arkansas this year for sure. Number 4, I mentioned Tennessee. I have Tennessee. I do think Tennessee is kind of overlooked. Like, people were talking about them being like, oh yeah, probably a top 20 team in the country or something like that. I know that they lost their 5 best players were all seniors last year, so they lost them. Zakai Ziegler is a huge piece of that. It feels like he's been there longer than Perry Ellis played at Kansas, which he was technically because Perry Ellis only played 4 years. But Zakai Ziegler, losing those guys that are culture setters are not ideal. But give some credit to Rick Barnes, which I never publicly do. I don't think I do enough, at least. The last 5 years, Tennessee has had the 5th, the 3rd, the 1st, the 3rd, and the 3rd best defense in the entire country in defensive efficiency. You know the defense is going to be good. No matter who is on the team, Rick Barnes' defense in Tennessee is going to be elite. Felix Okpara is a beast. It's great to keep him. You need that 5-man. JP Estrella and Cade Phillips are not huge pieces, but they're good depth pieces to return. They're going to have an opportunity for more this year, especially JP, I think. Nate Ament coming in and Amari Evans in a good freshman class is very pivotal for them. They don't usually play off of a young freshman like this, but Nate Ament has a lot of love out there. He didn't look amazing versus Duke, but again, it's a scrimmage, so like he's a freshman. He might take a little more time. He'll be fine. He's not going to be their number 1 best player in my opinion. Nate Ament is very good, but he won't need to be their best player because Jacoby Gillespie, the transfer, coming back home to Tennessee, is going to be their best player. Maryland was great last year. Jacoby Gillespie, Rodney Rice, and Derek Queen was a great trio. Jacoby Gillespie was the number 1 option on the team. I don't think people understand that. Like, Derek Queen was the lottery pick. Rodney Rice was the sniper. Jacoby Gillespie was the guy with the ball in his hands all the time. He was the main playmaker, the engine, great shooter, gets downhill. He did everything for the Maryland, not everything for the Maryland offense, but he was a huge piece of the Maryland offense. He's going to be Tennessee's number 1 option, and he could win SEC Player of the Year. He's that good, and Tennessee's going to be good. So I don't think the shooting will be amazing on this team. The ceiling probably isn't higher than it has been in the last few years, right? Like, if Dalton Knecht can't get to a Final Four in that team, and last year's team couldn't get to a Final Four, this team is probably going to struggle more to get to the Final Four. That being said, they could get there. I don't see a national title ceiling with them, like I saw with the Dalton Knecht team, and maybe even a little bit with last year's team, as much at least. Like, That's why I went Arkansas at 3, Tennessee at 4, because the ceiling is higher with Arkansas. But the floor is amazing with Tennessee, and I don't think that they're getting enough credit for that. Similarly, Alabama at number 5 for me probably has a similar. They're going to have a similar system to what they've been playing. Fastest pace in the country. They run through the guards. They go. They shoot a ton of threes. You have an open shot, you take it. That's the Nate Oates way, and that's the Nate Oates way that they've been succeeding. Yes, they lose Mark Sears, but the guard play on Alabama's team is stupid good this year. LeBaron Philon's going to take over the lead role. He looks very comfortable doing that early on in scrimmages. I fully trust that LeBaron Philon is that dude. He'll be a first-round pick this year. I think he's awesome, and he's going to be incredible. LeBaron Philon, you got Aiden Holloway coming back. You got Latrell Wrightsell coming back, who are both super fun players. They can both shoot the lights out when they want to. Jaleel Bethea, former 5-star coming in from Miami, is probably their 5th best guard because Houston Millett, who redshirted last year, that's my guy right there, is going to be playing this year, and I think he's an underrated piece to this team. He was at Pepperdine a couple of years ago. I think he was with that Javon Porter, Max Lewis team. Like, Houston Millett can flat out play and flat out shoot it. So I think having 5 guards, 4 of them who were on the team last year, is incredible. Like, yes, you lose Mark Sears, who has done wonders for your program, and you played so much through him. But those 5 guards, 4 of them from within the program, is an incredible backcourt. It's definitely the deepest backcourt in the country because Jaleel Bethea would be starting on majority teams in the entire country. They're going to start 3 of these guys also, and Houston Millett the same way. So, love the backcourt. Then you get into the front court, Taylor Bobo and Aiden Sherrill from OU, Noah Williamson. I don't think that it's an amazing front court. I don't think it's awful either. Like, it's good. They're going to have the same fast-paced rim running spacing that they always like to with Alabama bigs and front court players. I don't think defensively they're going to be any better than they have been in the past. That's why I feel like Alabama, I'm comfortably saying that Alabama won't be the potential 1 or 2 seed that they have been. That being said, if LeBaron Philon is as good as I want him to be and as good as I think he can be, it's a very similar team to what they've had in the past, right? Like, if they're fully healthy with Houston and Latrell Wrightsell, like, I don't see why they can't be. They're going to be a top 20 team probably all year because the Alabama system, especially in the SEC, will fry teams. When Alabama's on, they are going to be on and firing, and nobody's going to be able to beat them for the most part. We'll see how good LeBaron Philon could be because they do end up playing through one main guard, and it is going to be him. So he probably elevates the ceiling however good he's going to be. But Alabama defensively, lack of forcing turnovers, one of the worst teams at forcing turnovers in the entire country. That's why their defense wasn't so good. That will be their downfall again. The style will be their downfall, but the style also gets them to be so good and offers them such a high floor. So, number 6 in the conference, I actually have Missouri at number 6. I think most people have Auburn, maybe Ole Miss or something like that, but I think Missouri's underrated. They were 6th in the conference last year. Dennis Gates had a little bit of a mini breakout as a coach at least last year. They were terrible 2 years ago. Absolutely awful 2 years ago. They didn't have like a main number 1 option last year, but Mark Mitchell was probably their best player. They returned him. He's going to be an all-SEC player. And they returned Anthony Robinson. I love this dude. I'm not going to say I'm in love with a guy, but I love him as a basketball player. Anthony Robinson II is absolutely incredible. He is going to take a huge leap this year and have a big breakout year. He's showing that he can score the ball more. He's a great playmaker. He's so good at raking steals and pickpocketing, great perimeter defender. He's so important for the Mizzou style and the Mizzou defense to be good. Having those 2 guys as your returning duo is amazing. I think one of the better duos, and especially returning duos in the SEC. Last year, Caleb Grill, he was like a love him or hate him, fan favorite type of guy. The big mullet, the tight jersey and shorts, like shooting from the parking lot, talking shit all the time. He shot 74%. He shot at a 74% three-point attempt rate last year, which is like absolute menace to do that. Jacob Cruz is the guy to take that role this year from Missouri. He takes shots from the parking lot. He's willing to do that. He'll talk his talk. He shot at a 70% three-point attempt rate last year, which is basically what Caleb Grill was doing. So they're going to have a Caleb Grill. I don't know if he's going to be like Caleb Grill had games where he would just like go absolutely crazy and feel like he was scoring 90 points. I don't know if Cruz is going to do that. But they got their Caleb Grill type of player. Javon Porter, Columbia born and raised, from Loyola Marymount and Pepperdine before, stretch big, Michael Porter Jr.'s brother. That's if you do the math there, they're a Missouri family right there. Making his way back to Columbia to be at Mizzou and be at home. I like him. When he's on the court, he's great. He is very, very good. A good stretch big, runs the floor. He can shoot it. He can shot block. I like him a lot. Sebastian Mack coming in from UCLA is solid. They have a decent amount of depth transfers and freshmen to kind of fill in the rotation there, which will be important because last year, Missouri was first in the entire country in bench points and going into the rotation and relying on that rotation. Dennis Gates likes to play fast. They like to play a lot of guys. So I didn't know all the depth last year either, and I'm going to trust that Dennis Gates is going to get the most out of those depth pieces. Not only were they first in bench points last year, they were second in free throw attempt rate, and they were ninth in the country in steals. I don't love the ceiling that system offers because like you saw in the Drake game in the mid-tournament last year, they run into a team that basically takes them out of playing that fast, hectic style. All of a sudden, they're uncomfortable, and they're not going to be able to win those games. I do like the floor, especially in the SEC, because it's a fast-paced league, and it's a league where teams that do force a lot of turnovers are going to succeed a lot. So I like Missouri to be at least sixth or better, like they were last year at sixth. Love Anthony Robinson. Think he's going to have a huge year. So I like Missouri. Don't love the ceiling. I have Auburn at 7. I think it's a really close 7. Bruce Pearl transition to Stephen Pearl, I don't think is going to be drastically different, to be completely honest. Like, the system is going to stay the same. Stephen Pearl has been basically helping, if not running the program himself already. Bruce has been grooming him for this position. It'll be interesting to see Bruce, by the way, in some broadcast stuff. I'm intrigued to see what he does there. But focus on Auburn this year. If Bruce Pearl was coaching the team, I'd probably have them at 6 instead of 7. But I don't think that it would be a drastic difference because it's more in the roster, the turnover. They returned Todd Pettiford, obviously, which is amazing. Todd Pettiford could be all-conference, all-American if things go well. And I like the team on paper, for sure. Auburn has got dudes this year, like straight up. They have got dudes this year. Todd Pettiford and Keyshawn Hall might combine for 35 points a game this year. They probably should. I actually think that Keyshawn Hall might end up being the leading scorer on this team, and Tahad's going to do a little bit more playmaking. I don't think he's going to score drastically less, but I think that duo is one of the best scoring duos in the entire country. Kevin Overton from Texas Tech and Drake. Elijah Freeman, a good wing recruit coming in. Keyshawn Murphy from within the SEC, who's one of those just SEC dogs. Filip Jovic, international recruit coming in. I love his versatility, especially for a team like this that probably needs that. Abdul Bashir, the leading scorer in all of JUCO last year. Absolute bucket. Caden Magwood, freshman coming in to play in the backcourt behind Tahad. They have so many bucket getters and so many scorers, but my thing is no, they're not nowhere near what they were last year. They're going to miss guys like Chad Baker-Mazara. I know Auburn fans will agree with that. They're going to miss Chad Baker-Mazara. They're going to miss Dylan Cardwell. Keyshawn Murphy, I think can be that in a sense, but I don't see the same tenacity and energy that they have of role players like that on this team like they had last year. And that was so important for them. When Auburn last year would go on an 8-0 run, and then Chad Baker-Mazara has a steal, lobs it up to Janiyah Broome, whatever. Those were the times when Neville Arena's going crazy and you're like, wow, Auburn is unbelievable. This team can win a national championship. They're so good. They have a lot of great players. I just don't see the ceiling anywhere near what they've had in the past couple of years with the Jabari Smith team and a few years ago, and then last year's teams with Janiyah Broome. I like Auburn. Don't love them. They're going to be good. They're going to be a tournament team. I do like them in March, honestly, as a dark horse. If they're going to be a 7 seed or something like that, which I could see that happening, I think that's a really fun team to look out for in March because they can shoot the lights out. They can score the lights out. And then we get on to the next kind of tier of teams. At 8, I had comfortably Ole Miss. I comfortably had Ole Miss at 8, right behind Auburn and Missouri. I think Missouri, Auburn, and Ole Miss are in that grouping with each other of they could all be anywhere within 6, 7, 8 in the preseason, at least for me. I don't love the Ole Miss team this year. They bring in a few guys that try to fill Sean Padula role, but I love Chris Beard as a coach. Turnover margin is a huge thing for Ole Miss, and like I said before with Missouri, teams who can have a positive turnover margin and turn teams over in the SEC are a rarity, and I think are super important to make different and are huge difference makers because of that. The turnover margin system that Chris Beard runs, I love it. Offers a really good floor. They're going to be great. I love how they play like that. Malik Dia coming back is awesome. He's great. The fact that him, Jacoby Gillespie, and Cade Tyson, who looks great for Minnesota early on right now, were all together at Belmont 2 years ago and they couldn't go to the NCAA tournament is crazy. They couldn't win the MVC. I think that speaks levels to how good the MVC is. I'll say that more than anything else. I look at this team, Ole Miss. I don't see, like, Sean Padula was so key for them last year. Corin Johnson, Ilias coming in. I think Keza Jiffa from High Point could be maybe help out with that a little bit, but I don't think he's going to be a Sean Padula level player. AJ Store's obviously coming in his 8th school in 8 years. I don't think, you just can't expect AJ Store to be this unbelievable player like people want him to be. That being said, he is a good player and he is a good scorer and he's going to help them out a lot. James Scott coming in from Louisville. They have Corey Chest also. Like, they have good depth, I think, Ole Miss. I just don't think they have high-end, top-tier talent to push the top of the SEC this year. I think they'll be similar to what they've been in the last few years, which, to be fair, is good. Any coach that can get Ole Miss to be a good basketball program, to me, speaks levels and is a good basketball coach. So Ole Miss will be good. Don't think they'll be great. Then you get into the next tier of teams. So what is that? I just did 1 through 8. So 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 are all like not deadlock even to me, but I think they're all interchangeable at least in some way. Miss State I had at 9 because Chris Jans has basically figured out how to always be decent, always be a decent tournament team. I feel like they're an 8 or 9 seed every single year. They have been, this is actually kind of crazy. They've gone 8 and 10 in SEC 5 years in a row, which is actually, I guess, kind of impressive, but at the same time, like, can they get better? Like, are they going to be able to get immensely better? Josh Hubbard being there, obviously, probably is going to lead the SEC in scoring this year. He has the ultimate green light, the biggest green light maybe in all of college basketball and the power conference level. And in terms of, like, good teams that are decent and actual good players. Because, like, green lights on some bad teams, like, it happens. But Josh Hubbard is awesome. Great, electric, dynamite stick type scorer in the backcourt. I look at their team, Jaden Epps, Achor, Quincy Ballard. Like, their team isn't amazing. I don't think it's any better than it has been in the last few years. So what is to expect? Why should I expect Miss State to be any better than 8 and 10 in the SEC and another 8 or 9 seed? That's why I kind of have them here at number 9, but that's also why I have them at 9 and not 10, not 11, not 12, because the next few teams I mentioned are going to be very close to that. Vanderbilt at 10, underwhelming team on paper, for sure, but I also said that last year, and Mark Byington proved me wrong, and they ended up being a decent tournament team. Love Mark Byington as a coach. He might not be there much longer, realistically, because there are better jobs out there in power conference basketball, obviously, although Vanderbilt, with the football program, a lot more investment coming in, like, maybe he will stay there and stick it out. Who knows? But we'll see about that part. But Vanderbilt as a team this year, I think that they're talent-wise, they're towards the bottom of the conference for sure. Frankie Collins, Duke Miles, they're not bad. Devin McLaughlin, Tyler Harris, and Tyler Nichols, some shooters in the wing. Like, they're good. They're not going to be great. There's just no way they're going to be great. Again, I underestimated them last year. I considered putting them at 12 or 13 this year in the SEC, but that would mean them missing the tournament, and I would bet on Mark Byington making the tournament if I had to, and this is probably where the cutoff might be. This is team number 10 in the SEC. I think you're talking about 10, 11, or 12 teams from the SEC in the NCAA tournament this year. This is where the bubble is for me, and starts really, like Miss State, Vanderbilt for the SEC this year. I think they're going to be on the right side of the bubble because I have to just believe in Mark Byington. So I'm going to put them at 10. 11, I have Texas A&M. There's going to be a learning curve for Bucky McMillan as a new coach in the SEC. I like the hire. Let me just say that at first. And the team is good, and I'll get to them in a second. Bucky McMillan is a great coach. He's smart. He's adaptable. He's modern. Bucky Ball at Samford was as fast-paced as we could possibly go. Full court press. Go deep into the bench. Shoot as much as we can. The ideology and theory of that for the SEC makes sense. That's a great coach to bring into the SEC from the mid-major level. I don't think that it's going to be as simple as, turn Bucky Ball in the SEC with good players and you're going to be great. Because it's not that simple. Because teams are going to, like, they play Kentucky this year. I think Kentucky's going to murder them with physicality, athleticism, size. Tennessee could do that to them also. Florida's size in the front court and defense is going to be an issue for Texas A&M if they play that style. There will be a learning curve for Bucky McMillan, and you will see those games. I don't think they play a good out-of-conference schedule at all, so they could be a team coming into SEC play that you're like, oh, wow, they have one loss, two losses. Like maybe they're a legit top 25 team, and then they get their doors blown off by one of the SEC teams, and then they kind of figure it out in SEC play. The team, though, is actually good. That's why I like SEC. I like Texas A&M a decent amount. Pop Isaacs, fully healthy. Mackenzie Mbako, Rylan Griffin. You got scores. Rashawn Agee, Jakari Lane, Federico, a good little role player from Texas Tech. But they got guys to be good. Mackenzie Mbako should be their best player, I guess, and Pop Isaacs, and they could be all conference players. Texas A&M, again, I want to like a lot. I think they're a fun dark horse in the league. And I think, like I mentioned with this tier of teams, right, from Miss State down here and a couple more after this, they're very interchangeable. So I think this is a good year for, like, Bucky McMillan is kind of gifted with luck here that the SEC in the middle is very attainable for them. And if he can be a mid-level SEC team this year, after taking over very late in the process over the summer, I think that's a big W for Texas A&M, and I think they definitely could. After Texas A&M, Texas A&M at 11, I have Texas at 12. This is like on the cusp of like 50-50 NCAA tournament team or not. I've seen people have them as like a top 25-30 team potentially. The team is not bad. Again, Jordan Pope and Tremont Mark coming back is big. Kendall Weaver is probably one of the better glue guys in the entire country. I love Kendall Weaver. Not enough people respect him. They bring in Simeon Wilcher, who I like a lot from St. John's. I don't think this is the right place for him because they have other guards that are going to take over a lot and take a lot of demand. And I don't think... I wanted to see him in the SEC. I like that. I want to see him in a place where I know he's going to get it. He has the opportunity to be a guy this year and maybe be their best player, honestly, if he breaks out. But I just don't know if that's going to fully happen. Jordan Pope, Tremont Mark are super experienced, and they're good on-ball players. Dalen Swain coming in with Sean Miller from Xavier is going to get a lot of that burn also. They're decent, Texas. They don't blow me out of the water by any means. And Sean Miller's Xavier teams, I have been high on and have proven me wrong. I've been proven wrong, and I have been let down with the Xavier teams, especially in March and later in the season. So this version of Sean Miller, non-super sweaty Sean Miller, we'll say, but like, why am I supposed to give into this Texas team and be like, well, they're Texas? I feel like people are kind of going that route. Again, their team is good. I don't fully buy into Sean Miller in terms of like taking Texas to new heights. I don't think he changes Texas dramatically outside of what we've seen in the last few years, to an extent at least. They should be good. If they're a tournament team, they should be a tournament team realistically. So for me, if I had to say how many teams in the SEC get into the tournament, I'd say 12, and this is the cutoff right here. I have Oklahoma at 13. I want Oklahoma to be higher. Xavier Brown coming in from St. Joe's is my guy, and coach his stepdad, Justin Scott. Shout out Arcadia Knights, also coming in from St. Joe's. I think Xavier Brown's going to be their best player. I think people don't understand how good he actually is. Nigel Pack still playing, will be a nice backcourt mate. The two of them will probably be pretty balanced. Darian Reed coming in from the SEC. Like, they have Dayton Forsyth, Tay Davis, Mo Wag. Like, this team is pretty, not underwhelming. It's just not great. And then Porter Moser has not been good in the SEC. He has not been a good coach in the SEC by his own standards and by Oklahoma standards from what they had before that. So I don't think that this roster, with what we know of Porter Moser and his system, is going to be drastically different and much better from what we've seen in the past few years. So, again, I talk about this group of Miss State, Texas A&M, Vanderbilt, Texas, OU. Like, everything that I just told you why I want to doubt them is why I have them on the back end and why I don't think they'll be better than a lot of those teams in the SEC. That would mean that Oklahoma's job could be open next year. I don't know if they would hire from within, if Justin Scott or someone in there would get the job there and they have someone in the waiting. My guess is that it is not that, and it would be potential firing hot seat year for Porter Moser to watch out for. And I might as well get into the bottom of the conference also, because there might be some SEC jobs open there also. I have at 13, no, that's not right. 14, I have Georgia. 15, I have LSU. 16, I have South Carolina. Georgia, LSU, South Carolina, I don't think are going to be close to tournament teams this year. That would mean that if more jobs all three of those jobs could be open this year. Mike White, Lamont Paris, and Matt McMahon could definitely lose their jobs. LSU is interesting. Their team is definitely not good enough, Deion Thomas, I like a lot coming from UNLV. He's just not going to be able to do it all on his own. Lamont Parrish's team at South Carolina is interesting. It's weird. Michie Johnson coming back to South Carolina. Mike Sherajams, I have had stock in. I don't know what kind of player we're going to be getting this year. They have Eli Ellis in their team also. Like, Elijah Strong, I guess, and Capich coming in the international dude. Like, their team is pretty underwhelming, and outside of that one kind of, I will say, outlier year that South Carolina was very good, even though they weren't good in March, and I think people kind of knew that going into the tournament. Lamont Parrish has not been good at South Carolina, and they have not been able to move the needle. So, to me, at the bottom of the league, and Georgia I didn't say much on, but Georgia's team is worse than last year for sure. It's definitely worse. Blue Kane, Canning Catchings, and Somto Cyril is not going to do it for me with Mike White. I don't know if Georgia would fire Mike White if they don't make a tournament and they're like firmly out of it, but Georgia could have a job opening. South Carolina could definitely have a job opening. LSU probably will have a job opening. Oklahoma could have a job opening also. It's 4 coaches right there, 4 SEC jobs that could be open. And I think if SEC jobs start to open up for head coaches, that is what would start making the whole entire coaching carousel go crazy, because the SEC coaches get paid so much money. There's so much money in the SEC that they can poach from other power conferences, right? You saw that with Mark Pope, obviously, from BYU to Kentucky. Kentucky's another beast of it, but like the SEC demands the highest level of coaches because they pay the most. So they could take from other power conferences, which would then open other power conference jobs and kind of start this domino effect in the college basketball coaching carousel. And that's usually how it starts, with the power conferences at the top. That is definitely something to look out for. That is my power rankings for the SEC. I'll run you through it again real fast. I have Florida at 1. They can definitely win the national title again. Kentucky at a close number 2. If their defense is going to be as good as it should be on paper, if Mark Pope can get the system there, they can win the national title. Arkansas, I think, is a dark horse title contender. If the freshmen are going to be great, I think this could be one of Cal's better teams. Tennessee, I think's floor is underrated. I have them at 4. Alabama at 5. Missouri at 6. Auburn at 7. Ole Miss at 8. I think there's a clear top 8 in the conference, and it's those 8 teams. Miss State at 9. Vanderbilt at 10. Texas A&M at 11. Texas at 12. Oklahoma at 13. Those 5 teams are all interchangeable, and that's where the bubble is to me. I think 3, maybe 4 of those teams probably get in the tournament, where you're looking at double-digit SEC teams in the NCAA tournament for sure. I just think they're all interchangeable. Miss State has had a pretty high floor in the past few years, so that's why I kind of have them at the top of that group. I'm intrigued to see Bucky McMillan and Bucky Ball in the SEC. Oklahoma, I said already, never mind. Georgia at 14, LSU at 15, South Carolina at 16. Again, don't see any of those 3 teams making any noise in the SEC and pushing into the NCAA tournament. 16-team SEC Power Conference rankings. There you go. Let's do some player awards and all-conference teams. I'll start with the all-conference teams I have for the SEC this year. The first team was honestly tough because I felt like there were 7 guys I really wanted to give it to. Oh, I kind of want to change it now too. I'm not going to change it. Okay, first team all-conference. Otego-Oweh, Kentucky is an easy one. Jacoby Gillespie was an easy one for me also. The media had him at number 2, second team, because Nate Ament also on the second team. I think Jacoby's going to be their best player. So Otego-Oweh, Jacoby Gillespie, LeBaron Philon, Tahad Pettiford, and Alex Condon. I have Josh Hubbard and Darius Acuff as the first guys on the second team, although I really wanted to put both of them first team. I think both those guys could easily be up there for sure and contend for player of the year. So Josh Hubbard, Darius Acuff, second team. Thomas Houck, second team. Boogie Flan, second team. And Mark Mitchell on the second team from Missouri. Third team, I have Mackenzie Mbako at A&M. Anthony Robinson, my guy, over at Mizzou. Keyshawn Hall at Auburn. Malik Dia at Ole Miss. And Xavier Brown at Oklahoma. Deion Thomas, Carter Knox, Jaden Quaintance, Nate Ament, all honorable mention. Nate Ament's an interesting one just because, like, I don't think he's going to be as dominant as some of the other freshmen in the country like people want him to be. But I fear I might be wrong. And wrong to a sense that, like, all conference, he probably should be there. But honorable mention, I think, is a good shout. There's a lot of good players that I'm leaving off here. Player of the year, honestly, could be a number of dudes. I went with Otego-Oweh because he's the safest option for sure. He could score 20 points a game on a team that might be number 1 in the country very early on in the year. So it's hard to say that he won't win it. That being said, Jacoby Gillespie could win because Tennessee's going to be good and he's going to be their best player. LeBaron Philon, I think, is a sneaky player to win it because Alabama's going to be a ranked team at the worst the whole year. And statistically, he'll probably fill in the box score more than anybody else. Art Tahad and Josh Hubbard, sneaky dark horses for sure. I just don't know if they're going to be able to win it. Defensive player of the year, I went with Jaden Quains. If he's fully healthy, he's the best defender in the conference for sure. He's a ridiculous shot blocker, and he'll be such a pivotal piece and be highlighted in Kentucky's offensive team and system that as long as he's playing and healthy and starting, he's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. Although I do think Anthony Robinson, with the perimeter defense, the steals he corrals, is a good dark horse. I had Jacoby Gillespie, Newcomer of the Year, Darius Acuff, Freshman of the Year. Coach of the Year, I'll go with John Calipari. If Arkansas finishes 2 or 3, or obviously even 1, but if they finish top 3 in the conference, I think John Calipari wins it, and I think I have the number 3, obviously, so that's what I think they're going to do. Could Dennis Gates win it? Maybe. Could a sneaky guy like that? Potentially. Todd Golden might win it if Florida really runs away with it, or Kentucky with Mark Pope. But I like John Calipari to win Coach of the Year. My bold prediction for the conference, I don't think this is necessarily... I'll say this. Not that this is going to happen. I think Arkansas could end up being the most dangerous team in March. I've talked so much about Arkansas this episode and how good their ceiling is and their variability. At their high end, they could be one of the best teams in the country, especially with the guard play and the continuity, and I think the physical presence that they've added. They could be the most dangerous team in March because their guards could kind of carry them a little bit. And I just don't know if their defense is going to be there completely, but I think that is probably my biggest dark horse take, or whatever you want to call it, bold prediction in the conference. I don't really have like this overarching thing of like, oh, the SEC overall is going to do this or that, because the SEC last year was the best conference ever of all time. So like, it's hard to kind of go after, to give a bold take after that. I don't think there's anything crazy to take on here besides the fact that I think Arkansas is going to be so good. Let's get into Q&A real fast. We did have one question that we're gonna pull up. I gotta find it. It was a really good question, and once we saw it as a team here, we had to use it. It was about Marvel superheroes. Here it is. Brandon Ciron said, compare SEC players to Avengers superheroes, which I haven't thought about this at all. I saw the question, and I'm just remembering it now that I had to do it. I don't know, honestly. Jaden Quains is the Hulk, for sure, actually. I do know. Jaden Quains is definitely the Hulk. Guy's a monster. I'd say that Otega Oweh is probably the new version of Captain America, like Falcon, which is, like, he's good. He's not, like, the greatest thing you're ever going to see, but you know what you're getting out of him, and you know he is the dude. Thomas Houck, because of the mullet and the grittiness that he plays with, is probably the OG Captain America. I'll say that Tahad Pettiford is Iron Man, because Tahad is smaller, he's quick, he's explosive, he's fun, and he talks a lot of shit. So talk your shit, my boy. That's what Robert Downey Jr., a.k.a. Tony Stark, R.I.P. Tony Stark, did also. And beyond that, it's tough. I'll say Anthony Robinson, the quick defender, tenacious guy, is Black Widow. Shout out Scarlett Johansson. So there you go. Those are my Marvel superhero SEC player comps for the most part, at least. That is going to do it for this episode for the SEC conference preview. Sorry for a little bit of the delay. We had some technical difficulties, but SEC out today. You got Big East episode coming on Thursday, and then next week on Monday, on the first day of the season, you'll have like a national preview of Final Four picks, title picks, All-Americans, Player of the Year, etc., and we'll talk through that. And then we're going to be all in-season content from there. So again, appreciate y'all for being here as always, especially at the end. Means so much to me in the world. We're just hitting big goals with the podcast. Close to 1,000 subs on YouTube, which will probably cross with this episode. Nearing 20,000 downloads on podcast platforms. Because of you guys, the podcast has taken off to places that I did not expect it to be this early on. Very excited for the season to see where the podcast goes, but I'm genuinely happy to be doing this, and you guys make this amazing. You guys make this job great. So appreciate you again. Hope you enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever you want to do. Turn notifications on. You have a great week. We'll see you back on Thursday. Don't forget about Thursday for the Big East preview. Have a great week. Goodbye.